All right, welcome back. We continue live right here on Pittsburgh CW. Bob Pompeani, along with Gene Collier here at 412-575-2600. Give it a call. That's the Bordas and Bordas hotline. We also go to Twitter at KDPomp, at Gene Collier. Guillermo Huffman, who we had the pleasure of meeting tonight in person, he says a popular opinion is that Bell won't be welcome back as a Steeler, but an injury to Connor or a 3-touchdown game will change that. Absolutely. Guillermo, Gene, that always changes things. If he gets back and he makes a contribution, people forget about a lot of things quickly. However, if he doesn't and he struggles and he's not in football shape and he makes mistakes, it becomes further problem. What
if he continues to report but only to the get-go? Because they have good food.
They do.
They can make you a good sandwich in a hurry.
Made to order, too, so you can take it before you avoid going to the south side.
Right. You know, talking about that, frankly, is much more interesting than talking about.
You want an endorsement deal, don't you? I know you. You never got your sub from Subway, and you're still holding that against me.
I haven't gotten my roof from Island Contracting.
Let's talk also about the Penguins, because I know you're not a fan of October hockey, Gene, but
hockey.
I like hockey, period. And today they got a big blow, no doubt. It was a gruesome-looking injury on Saturday night. Justin Schultz, who's been their leading plus-minus for the last 2 years on this team, he's now out 4 months, surgery, broken leg, and you know you're going to rely on other guys, and they're deep enough certainly to do this. I think Juuso Riikola is a guy who has shown that he can play in this league, especially as a 5 or 6 defenseman. They haven't used Chad Ruido yet, and they have guys in their system. So it's bad for Justin Schultz, but it may be down the road an opportunity for other guys to show that they have value in this organization.
Yeah, no, that's always the way. You know, when you lose a really important component like Justin Schultz, I feel terrible for him. Other players get an opportunity, and sometimes they really show what they can do and really develop as players. And you know, that's a good thing about the hockey season. All these things can happen, you know, over the long stretch of the hockey season. Justin Schultz out 4 months, that still puts him back here 2 months before the playoffs.
And he should be ready to go for the playoffs, so that's certainly good news. The other good news is Matt Murray back at practice. He was cleared the other night, likely will start in goal tomorrow against Vancouver, and it looks like Derek Brassard will be on Sidney Crosby's left wing with Jake Gensel, something the coaching staff said they would keep in their back pocket, and now with some of the stuff that's gone on there, they're ready to use that, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night against Vancouver. Let's go to the lines. We'll begin with Rick in Elizabeth. Hello, Rick.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, Gene, get-go, it's only at this time of year you can get the Pilgrim sandwich, hoagie or whatever. It is out.
What is on a Pilgrim sandwich?
Really? Tell me about it.
The Pilgrim is basically turkey dinner on a sandwich.
Nice.
It is very, very.
I think they should rename it the Gene Collier pilgrimage.
Well, you know what? Gene's got to try it, and you never know. He can get that endorsement.
What's up, Rick? What do you want to talk about?
All right. What I wanted to talk about was challenges. Mike Tomlin and these. First off, I've never seen him win one. And then one that we probably could have won, we didn't, which could have been a big part of the game. I just don't know who's up in the booth making these calls, and if you guys can shed some light on it. And the last time we won one, I'd like to know that as well.
No, he's won, but everyone seems to know guys who do this. For the Pirates, for the Penguins, Kevin Saucier made a call in Tampa Bay that may have won a cup for the Penguins, because he challenged an offside call, which I thought was a really interesting challenge. But, Gene, I don't know who does it for the Steelers, and quite frankly, it all comes back to the head coach. If Mike Sullivan loses one, it's on him. If Mike Tomlin, it's on him. But who does it, do you know?
Yeah, no, I don't know that the Steelers have anybody do it. I've never, no person has been so identified. Mike Tomlin did have a successful challenge in the playoff game against Miami 2 years ago. He may have had one in the interim, but I'm not sure. He said he couldn't see that play, and that's why he didn't challenge it. And they're not going to replay, on the other team's video board to give Mike Tomlin the benefit of that doubt. Yeah, I mean, he's been bad at it, but I don't know how his record compares to other coaches.
Yeah, I don't either. I think they all miss him. I just think that first one with Ryan Switzer didn't need to be challenged. There wasn't any significance going on with that drive, other than a first down, which would have extended a drive in your own territory pretty deep. The other one with James Conner I thought was worth it, because you're talking about taking points off the board. And they essentially did that. They took 4 points off the board by not challenging that play. And I realize you feel good about being on the 1 yard line, but there are no guarantees in the NFL, especially against a pretty good front in Cincinnati. Got another tweet here. Kevin Davis says, I'm sick of hearing about 26 sightings, but Gene's comment about 26 reporting to go was priceless. Love both of you. Gene says stuff that I just don't expect, and yet it makes my day. So congratulations.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Line 1, we got David in the South Side. Hey, David, how are you?
Okay, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I want to make a comment about Vontaze Burfict, that cheap shot he put on Antonio Brown. When he's on the way to the ground, 2 people are already on him, and he just gave him that elbow.
Yeah, it was a careless elbow. It was intent to hurt, in my opinion. No flag on the play. Gene, what do you think? What do you think the NFL should do?
Yeah, I think Vontaze Burfict has crossed a line in the NFL where he should not be allowed to play. I'm sorry. I know it's never happened before. I know it's legally dubious, but that kind of player is just really bad for the game. He's going to hurt somebody really badly, and that seems to be his primary purpose, is hurting people and making people mad and making people mad at him. And that's not, I mean, football's, defensive football in the NFL is played basically in a full rage, but at some point it becomes uncivilized, and you can't tolerate that.
And he's had a history. The history should
That's what I mean.
Put him in a position where he is suspended. Now look, the NHL made a statement on their version of Vontaze Burfict, who is Tom Wilson. He's had 4 suspensions in a calendar year, and on the 4th one, they decided, even though it was a preseason game, on Oscar Sundqvist, the former Penguin, he knocked him out cold, basically, has a concussion, still isn't right now. They gave him 20 games, Gene. That's as hard a line as you would have expected. I didn't expect that from the NHL, but maybe the NFL is to the point now where they got to do it.
The NFL has effectively done that, Bob. They've given him 2 3-game suspensions. Now, that's not quite the equivalent of 20 games, but it's close. But nothing seems to register with him. That seems to be the only way he wants to play.
Well, let's talk about what it does to the Players Association, because they defend him, but he's also hurting someone else who's in the Players Association. Yeah. So what do you do?
Well, he puts them in a terrible spot too. He should be out of the league.
Yeah, well, a lot of people agree with that. Let's go to line 3, Clint in Altoona. Clint, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
What's up, man?
Yeah, before I make my main point, as that first caller talked about the Steelers and the play calling and everything, I'm more appalled at some of the calls that Penn State coaches have made lately, but that's another story. My question is that I didn't get to see too much of the Steelers game yesterday because of work and everything, but they played New England again this year at home toward the end of the schedule, and watching that game last night, I don't know what the NFL was coming to. At 83 points in a game, this isn't football, if you ask me. I mean, it's all offense. I mean, New England, they were hyping them up again, talk about this morning how great they are, and their defense stinks. And I know Patrick Mahomes is a kid that's on fire. He's going to be a great player. And, of course, Kansas City gave up 43, but they were missing a couple starters. What do you think about, all the talk down, of course, year after year about New England and everything? I don't think their defense it's not good enough.
If they score at the rate they score, their defense doesn't have. I think the Steelers, quite frankly, Clint, are in the same position. Gene, if the Steelers just stop a few drives, their offense is good enough to score enough to win, even if their defense isn't perfect. They don't have to be perfect. What defense in the NFL is perfect? Yesterday, the Bears got ripped apart. The Jaguars, those 2 teams are looked at as 2 of the best defensive teams, and they were terrible both.
Yeah, when I was a real stat maven, Bob, in my younger days, I used to keep track of 300-yard games by passers. Now there are 10 of them every week. It's it's a very different game. I always thought that if you had an NFL game that was 35-31. That's obviously not a great defensive game, but I think it's a legitimate game. But if games are 50-40 or 43-40, that's not to my taste.
No, there's never been a score of 43-40 in regulation time in the NFL, and there was last night. And you knew it came down to who had the ball last, and they were going to score, it seemed like. And Tom Brady is very good in that situation, as is Ben Roethlisberger. Take a break, come back with more right here live. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, Pittsburgh CW.